together, yeah, yeah, yeah. Why don't you and I combine? Well, clearly some of you are old enough to have remembered this song. This was the dream of my childhood, this song, Let's Get Together. I wanted to get my mother and my father together again. I was living with my father in Maine. My mother was in California, and I got to see her all of about 2 weeks a year. Oops. But the twin who would help me get them back together never really arrived. However, that quest for how to bring people into creative, loving, compassionate, respectful relationships became the true north of my own inner compass and the direction of my life work. I was 20 before I even saw a good relationship. It was between one of my Stanford profs and his filmmaker wife, Jim and Dorothy Fadiman. They had a creative, fun, mutually respectful, and especially mutually respectful of each other's work. I wanted a relationship like that really bad, and I didn't know how to do it. So I took myself into therapy and all those workshops we've talked about today. And then I became a therapist and workshop trainer so I could teach other people how to do it. When I was 37, I started a national workshop company so I could teach even more people how to have good relationships. We would be in ballrooms and have 130 people, and I would talk up and down the East and West Coast. And then I would take them into the high desert for 12 days. I did many, many, many workshops. I became a very skilled trainer. But the better I got at teaching other people how to have good relationships, the lonelier I got. I worked weekends. I worked weekday evenings. I ran the company during the week and went home alone. When I was 42, my mother died. And I discovered that she and her family were a lot wealthier than I had thought. And with her death, I began to inherit money, enough so that I didn't have to work. Frankly, I would have rather have had my mother. She was quite young when she died. I didn't want it to change my life. So what did I do? I kept working. I worked double time, and I stopped taking pay. The company, of course, then thrived, but I had no life. And I knew that I had to step outside of that kind of isolated spiritual teacher if I was going to survive. And simultaneously, I was being thrust into a whole new world of lawyers and bankers and trust officers and money managers for which I had no preparation and no training. But I knew that I wanted to do something and had to do something with what was coming at me. Fortunately, a friend told me about the Threshold Foundation, which is started by and for people like me who had more than they needed and wanted to do something really good with it. What I learned from the folks at Threshold was how to be the kind of philanthropist that I wanted to be, daring to give money to the projects that I cared about, no matter what my family might think. And the second thing was that it was my first experience of true community, where I was an equal. I was a peer. I wasn't the teacher. I wasn't the student. I wasn't the parent. I wasn't the child. I was a sibling, all working together to bring change into the world. A year later, I met the man who became my husband. Many of you know Rick Payne. I was a neophyte in actually experiencing male-female relationships. So when I was 46 and moved to Boulder to marry Rick, I found myself in this kind of odd place. I was going through 2 initiations at once. I was the archetypal maiden stepping into the springtime of my first relationship with a man. And I was going through menopause. I was like, so at one level, my body was grieving any chance that we had to have children together, and my heart was just overflowing with joy. Rick and I traveled. We became wilderness guides. We studied, and we began to create our own workshops that we led around the country. And lo and behold, as his stepkids with his first wife grew to be parents themselves, I got to be a grandma. It's really one of my joys. Early on, we began to summer on Cortes Island in British Columbia, and then even later, winter. And I had my first really deep experience of the land. I felt embraced by the land. I don't even know how to, it was a cosmic experience. It was the first time in my life I planted things and watched them grow. I loved walking the winter trails and the beaches, especially in the winter. I healed in some really primal way in my body that I didn't even know needed to be healed. But where were the people? Rick and I knew that we wanted to live in a creative community to go through what we perceive as somewhat turbulent times. And we knew now that we wanted to be in the Pacific Northwest, so we looked around. It took us several years, but in 2005, we chose Whidbey Island. And we chose it for the Rick and Peggy's and the Charles and Betsy's that we already knew, and as it turned out, for the Carries and the Mullies and the Greenies and the Dianas and the Lynns that we didn't know, but who, along with all of you, have created a remarkable space of friends of friends and Hearts and Hammers and Win and Wicca and wow. In 2008, I became president of a small nonprofit called New Stories. My passion now is how do we help humanity change our core story from I to we, from separation to interconnectedness, to the realization that it's all alive, it's all intelligent, it's all connected, and it's all relatives. The work of New Stories is to turn that inner cog just the slightest little bit to realize that we need to all be in this together. So I support the emergence of New Stories and the little lights blinking up there. Through running New Stories and through my philanthropy. Giving to organizations that I care about and feel are living a new story is my activism. It's my way of making the most of what I've been given. As Maya Angelou says, giving liberates the soul of the giver. And I'm more than delighted to be in this room with all of you who are giving all that you have to make this community a place that we can all thrive. The Hopi elder says we must let go of the shore, push off into the middle of the river, keep our eyes open and our heads above water, see who is in there with us and celebrate. Let's take a moment to celebrate all being in the river together with this Let's Get Together song. One heart, let's get together and we'll be all right. Hear the children crying. One love, one heart, give thanks and praise to the Lord, and I will feel all right. Let's get together and feel all right. Thank you.